there are still more differences between the pop tone voice and the opera tone voice. Basically, I've said that generally voices have problems in the way they produce their sound, and what's happened is it's become stylistic to have a certain gravelly voice or a certain reedy voice, which people tend to teach their students in a way to produce to get a sound out of their students so that it pleases the eardrum of the teacher. The way I teach is not to produce the sound that I want to hear, but firstly I try to fix all the mechanics in singing, in the throat and in the body, and once everything's working efficiently, then I try and paint the bonnet. If I was fixing a car, I wouldn't go painting the bonnet or the body of the car if the mechanics inside are all falling apart. I first try and fix the machines, the machinery, the tyres, the brakes, the motor and all that. And once it's all running efficiently, then the last thing I do is I go and worry about how it looks. Now the same thing is singing. Singers should not be concerned about how they sound at the start when they're trying to liberate tensions and forcing in the voice. Basically in the pop sort of music industry, you'll hear voices of all kinds. You'll hear voices that sound breathy, sound husky, sound croaky, sound shaky, sound bleaty, and these sort of voices, a lot of these people become very famous and popular, and then young people try and imitate the faults of these people's voices because the record got a big sale, whatever the reasons are. And so what's happened is if you look at singers of the 1970s in rock bands and that, those people produced their tones generally in a very, very natural way. Their voices were vibrated. If they sang in chest tone, it was vibrated. If they went into head voice and falsetto, the voices vibrated. There was no air escape, no breathiness, no croaky qualities, none of that. I mentioned that since the advent of Louis Armstrong and singers of the likes of him had strong influences on modern singers of today. People today, we tend to live in an imitative society. We like to imitate things of the past instead of searching for truth or looking for something that is real. And I always believe that a vibrated tone, whether it's in connected chest voice or head-ringing falsetto voice, is the best tone and the most truthful tone, which is truthful to our identity. Once we venture off from that, we get into trouble and we put pressures on our instrument. In classical singing, you will come across a lot of productions similar to throaty productions, and you'll get throaty, wobbly productions, okay. You will get open throat, but pressured, subglottal pressured productions, which is all singing in the larynx and putting so much pressure on the ligaments in there, which God did not build those ligaments to handle air pressure. Then you'll get pressured voices singing out of their larynxes, which then wobble, okay, and people tend to, in our times, call the wobble a vibrato, which is really ridiculous. But anyway, and so you will get in a lot of opera singing voices that have been taught to yawn their production in order to try and invite the opening of the throat. To give an example, a yawn often comes with a window-shaped mouth, which is a very popular modern addition to the shaping of our mouth. People tend to think that by showing their teeth, covering the top teeth, and yawning at the back, right? Yeah, you get a big puffy sort of sound, but do we do that when we speak? That's the question I want you to ask yourself. If I spoke like that to you, and I look like that speaking to you, would you think that I'm normal or there's something not right? There is a lot of, as I said, a lot of throaty and laryngeal production. Throaty production is caused by the tension of the tongue contracting and the tongue then pressing down on the larynx and the throat, inside here the wall's contracting and air pressure building under the vocal cords. Okay, so we don't want to get our tongue caught in our throat. And the tongue, if you really do a little bit of an anatomical study, it's an extremely long muscle, and it connects to every muscle through our back and through our shoulders and through our lungs and chest. Okay, so if it contracts or tenses up, it's going to be pulling on every other muscle down below, and it's going to cause a bit of tension on areas that it shouldn't touch. So the tongue, we don't need a limp tongue, because if I talk limp, if I'm talking with a limp tongue, I sound like that. Okay, but we don't need a stiff tongue like that also and getting all throaty. We want to talk with a tongue that's elasticizing and moving, but it's moving with tonic tension. Tonic meaning elastic tension. It releases and it gains elastic tension, but it never stiffens to becoming rock hard. And you can feel if it's stiff and rock hard under here. So most opera singers who produce a sound like, oh, you can bet your bottom dollar that they've got a lump under here. Okay, between the gap between the bottom of the chin and where the larynx ends. There's always a bit of a gap there. That's the root of the tongue under there. There is a little bit of elastic tension on an E vowel if you're singing an open throat E, and you feel a little bit of elastic tension, but as long as your thumb can push into it like a rubber band, that's okay. But if it's stuck like a rock under there, well then you ought to readdress how you're producing your voice. So in opera we tend to hear grinded, wobbly, okay, if I'm singing happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, like that, as opposed to happy birthday to you, which would you rather listen to? Okay, the first one obviously has spasms going on in the larynx, and it's caused by the tongue pressing down on the larynx because the tongue has gone into spasms. And the larynx goes with it, and it shakes. Okay, you can even feel that just here, or feel under there. All right, we have a lot of breathy tone in, as I said, in pop music. I love you, baby. Oh yeah. Okay. Then you get a lot of sort of narrowed, thinned out voices that like to hold on to their tongue a little bit. I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to offend anyone, but you'll hear singers that will do, well, a bird for you, what am I gonna do? Bird for you. So you get singers that are releasing the tongue and like to grab on it for colour effect. They like to colour their sound with their tongue muscle tensing up a little. And they get away with it because their vocal cords are healthy, they don't have sinus conditions, they don't suffer allergies, and a throat that is very robust and healthy without any problems or reflux conditions and that can do a lot of tensed up work in there and sing for many years like that, but the tone is actually not 100% honest and true. But as long as they're getting their careers, good on them. I wish them well. You have the tremolo tone, the bleedy tone, a lot of these sort of and what is a vibrato and what is a wobble and what is a waver? What is a bleat? Very different. The bleat, the wobble and the vibrato, the wobble will have a wider sort of oscillation. If that's the note starting there, and that's 3 seconds in length, I can either start it, hold it and finish it on the same pitch, steady. We call that regular vibration because my voice is steady and it's purring like a kitten. And that is what a natural voice does. Then we can add a vibrato to that steady tone, which is we stay on the pitch, but we spin the voice to the side. We don't waver it above and under. So if I'm going, slowing down, but the note is, okay? That means that at some point, if the singer's singing a very fast bleat, a bleat is more quicker, a wobble's wider. A waver is just slightly, it's almost on pitch, but it just sort of hangs above and below it slightly. And all three, wobble, bleat or waver, cross through the pitch at some point through the oscillation of the vibration of the voice. And that tends to make us think that they're singing in tune even though they're wavering. But if you slow it down, it's actually out of tune singing. Whereas if we're singing a steady tone, ah, and we add a spin to it, ah, ah, I'm still tuned to the note, but I haven't gone beyond its pitch. I'm spinning and rotating through the sound. Ah, and that's called vibrato. So vibrato respects pitch. It doesn't go wavering off the pitch.